The silver crown hit the marble floor with a sound that shattered 500 years of pack law. And in that moment, Luna Cassia's entire world collapsed. 3-year-old Marcus, heir to the Silverwood throne, child of the Alpha King's forbidden bloodline, stood at the Coronation Hall window. His tiny fists still clenched from throwing his mother's crown into the courtyard below, and every wolf in the kingdom held their breath as the royal decree that had taken decades to negotiate turned to ash before their eyes. But before we see how this impossible moment destroys everything Cassia fought for, tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug, because what happens next will break your heart in ways you won't see coming. The crown landed in a puddle of yesterday's rain, and Cassia felt her knees buckle. She'd spent 3 years hiding, 3 years running, 3 years raising the son of Alpha King Aurelius in secret, waiting for the day when the council would finally acknowledge what everyone knew but no one dared speak. That Marcus carried the purest Alpha bloodline in 6 generations, and that made him untouchable, even if his mother was nothing more than an Omega servant who'd shared one forbidden night with a king. The coronation was supposed to change everything. The blood oath Aurelius had sworn on his deathbed was supposed to protect them. But Marcus, beautiful, wild, impossibly strong Marcus, had just destroyed her only chance at legitimacy in front of 200 pack leaders, and the silence in the great hall felt like a living thing, coiled and ready to strike. Elder Octavius rose from his seat first, his ancient bones creaking, his eyes fixed on the empty window where Marcus still stood, his dark curls catching the morning light like a crown of his own. "Luna Cassia," Octavius said, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. "Perhaps you'd like to explain why the heir to the Silverwood throne, the child whose Alpha bloodline we've spent 3 years verifying, the child for whom we've rewritten pack law itself, just threw the symbol of his mother's authority into the mud like common refuse." Cassia's hands trembled as she moved toward Marcus, but before she could reach him, High Priestess Liviana stepped between them, her ceremonial robes rustling like warning bells. "Don't touch him," Liviana said softly. "Not until the council determines whether this was an act of a child or an omen." The word omen rippled through the assembled wolves like electricity. Cassia felt her wolf surge beneath her skin, desperate to protect her son, but she forced herself to breathe, to stay calm, to remember that one wrong move now could cost Marcus everything. "He's 3 years old," Cassia said, and she was proud that her voice didn't shake. "He doesn't understand what he's done." The crown startled him. The weight of it, the metal against his face when I bent down. "The crown never touched him," Elder Tiberius interrupted from the back of the hall. "We all saw. You were 10 feet away when he threw it." Cassia's mouth went dry. She'd forgotten how many eyes had been watching. How many witnesses stood between her and the throne that Aurelius had promised her, had sworn to her in blood and magic, in the darkness of his final hours when the cancer had eaten through his alpha strength and left him human and dying and desperate to protect the son he'd never publicly claimed. "Make them accept her," he'd whispered, his hand gripping hers with the last of his strength. "Make them see that Marcus needs his mother, that the pack needs her. Promise me, old friend." And Octavius had promised. But that promise hung by a thread now, and Marcus, still standing at the window, still silent, his silver-blue eyes fixed on something in the courtyard that only he could see, had cut that thread with one impossible act. Beta Commander Gaius pushed through the crowd, his ceremonial armor catching the light from the stained glass windows that told the story of their pack's founding. "Perhaps," Gaius said carefully, "we should consider that the boy did this deliberately. That he's rejecting his mother's claim to rule as Luna. That his alpha blood recognizes what we've been too political to acknowledge, that an Omega has no business wearing the crown, regardless of whose bed she warmed." The insult landed like a physical blow. Cassia heard several wolves gasp, heard Lady Valentina's sharp intake of breath from the front row, heard the rustle of fabric as some of the younger pack members shifted uncomfortably. But she also heard the murmurs of agreement. She heard the whispers that had followed her since the moment Aurelius died and the council had discovered her pregnancy. Gold digger. Opportunist. Omega trash who trapped an Alpha King with a child. Never mind that Aurelius had pursued her. Never mind that their night together had been her first and only time with any man. Never mind that she'd refused his offers of money, of position, of anything except the promise that he'd acknowledge Marcus when the time was right. She'd wanted nothing from him except love, and he'd given her that in the end. But love didn't matter to Pack Law. Blood did. And standing in the great hall with 200 wolves staring at her like she was something that had crawled up from the Omega quarters, Cassia realized that Marcus's blood might not be enough to save her after all. "The boy needs discipline," Elder Marcellus said, and several wolves nodded. "He needs a firm hand. Perhaps his mother's influence has been too soft. Too Omega." The way he said Omega made it sound like a disease. Cassia's wolf snarled inside her chest, but she kept her face calm, kept her voice steady. "Marcus has never been disciplined by anyone but me," she said. "And he's never, not once, shown disrespect to pack hierarchy or tradition. If he threw the crown, there's a reason. Let me speak with him privately, and I'll—" "No." The voice came from the doorway, and every head in the great hall turned to see Alpha Nero stride in. His black ceremonial coat sweeping behind him like wings. His presence filling the room with a kind of raw dominance that made even the elders straighten in their seats. Cassia's blood turned to ice. Nero. Aurelius's younger brother. The Alpha who should have inherited the throne when Aurelius died, except that Aurelius had named Marcus as his heir in the blood oath, and Pack Law, ancient, unbreakable Pack Law, said that a named heir superseded all other claims as long as that heir carried true Alpha blood. Which Marcus did. But Nero had been circling the throne like a wolf circling wounded prey for 3 years, waiting for his chance, and Cassia could see in his cold amber eyes that he'd just found it. "The boy has rejected his mother's authority," Nero said, his voice carrying to every corner of the great hall. In front of the entire pack. In front of the council. During a sacred coronation ceremony. Pack Law is clear about what happens when an heir rejects their regent. "He's 3 years old," Cassia said again, but her voice sounded desperate now, and she hated herself for it. "He doesn't understand." "He's not just any 3-year-old, Nero interrupted. "He's an alpha child. His instincts are already stronger than most grown wolves. And his instincts just told him, told all of us, that you are unfit to rule in his name." The words hung in the air like smoke. Cassia felt the room shifting around her, felt the political winds changing direction, felt the carefully constructed alliance that Octavius had built over 3 years of negotiation and compromise beginning to crack. "The council will deliberate," Octavius said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss." "There's nothing to discuss," Nero said. "Pack Law is clear. When an heir rejects their regent, the regency passes to the next alpha in the bloodline. Which is me." "The boy didn't reject her," Lady Valentina said sharply. "He threw a crown. Children throw things. This is absurd." "Is it?" Nero moved toward the window where Marcus still stood, and Cassia's wolf howled inside her, every maternal instinct screaming at her to put herself between her son and this dangerous male. "Tell me, nephew, did you throw your mother's crown because you wanted to? Or because something told you to?" Marcus turned from the window for the first time since he'd thrown the crown, and Cassia's breath caught in her throat. Her son's eyes, those impossible silver-blue eyes that he'd inherited from Aurelius, that marked him as undeniably alpha, undeniably royal, were glowing. Not metaphorically, actually glowing. The way alpha eyes glowed in battle or during a challenge, or when the wolf took control and the human mind stepped back. But Marcus was 3 years old. Alpha children didn't manifest their wolves until at least 5, usually older. And yet there he stood, tiny and fierce and terrifying, with eyes that burned like starlight and a presence that made every wolf in the room take an involuntary step back. "Voice," Marcus said, and his voice was wrong. Too deep, too layered, like multiple voices speaking in harmony. Voice said crown is lie. Voice said mama's crown is chains. Voice said throw it away, and Pack will be free. The temperature in the great hall dropped 10 degrees. Cassia felt her wolf retreat inside her chest, felt primal fear override every other instinct, Because whatever was speaking through her son wasn't human and wasn't wolf. It was something older. Something that Pack Law had no name for. Moon Goddess, High Priestess Liviana whispered, and she dropped to her knees. The child is touched by the divine. He's a oracle, Elder Octavius finished, and his ancient face had gone pale. The boy's an oracle. Like the prophecy foretold. Nero's expression didn't change, but Cassia saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him reassessing, recalibrating, and she knew with sudden cold certainty that this was worse than rejection. This was something Nero could use. An oracle, Nero said slowly. How convenient. And what does the oracle say about his mother's fitness to rule? Marcus's glowing eyes fixed on Nero, and when he spoke again, the layered voice sent shivers down Cassia's spine. Uncle wants throne, Marcus said. Uncle wants power. Uncle makes plans in dark places with dark wolves. Voice shows me. Uncle's plans end in blood. Several wolves gasped. Nero's face remained perfectly calm, but Cassia saw his hands clench behind his back, saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. The child speaks nonsense, Nero said. Oracle or not, he's still barely more than an infant. His visions are confused, unformed. Voice says Uncle killed the king, Marcus said, and the entire great hall erupted into chaos. Wolves were on their feet, shouting, demanding answers, calling for Nero's arrest or Marcus's examination or Cassia's removal. And through it all, Cassia stood frozen, staring at her son, wondering what force had taken hold of him and whether she'd ever get her little boy back. Because the child at the window wasn't Marcus anymore. It was something else wearing his face. And it was tearing her world apart. Elder Octavius slammed his staff against the marble floor 3 times, and the sound cut through the chaos like a blade. Silence! The command carried alpha compulsion, something elders weren't supposed to be able to do anymore, but Octavius had been a warrior before he'd been a politician, and his power still ran deep enough to make every wolf in the room bare their neck in instinctive submission. The child has made a serious accusation, Octavius said. Alpha Nero, do you wish to answer it? Nero's amber eyes swept the room, measuring, calculating, and then he smiled. A cold, sharp smile that made Cassia's wolf whimper. I wish to call for a blood trial, Nero said. Ancient Pack Law. If the boy believes I murdered his father, let him prove it. Let his oracle powers show the council what happened the night Aurelius died. And if he cannot, Nero's eyes locked onto Cassia's. Then the boy's words are meaningless, his oracle powers are false, and his rejection of his mother's regency stands. Which means the throne passes to me, as is my right. Cassia felt the trap closing around her. Blood trials were ancient, brutal, and binding. If Marcus couldn't prove his accusation, Pack Law would strip him of his inheritance and give everything to Nero. But if Marcus did prove it, if this strange oracle power was real, if Nero had actually killed Aurelius, then Cassia would be going to war with the second most powerful alpha in the kingdom, and her son would be marked for death by every wolf loyal to Nero's cause. There was no winning, only survival. The boy is 3 years old, Cassia said, and this time she let her wolf bleed into her voice, let them all hear the mother's fury beneath the Omega submission. You're calling for a blood trial against a toddler. Do you understand how that looks? I understand that the toddler just accused me of regicide, Nero said coldly. I understand that Pack Law demands I defend my honor. And I understand that you're scared, Omega, because you know that once the trial proves the boy is lying, you lose everything. He wasn't wrong. Cassia did know that. But she also knew something else. Something she'd learned in 3 years of raising a child who was stronger, faster, and stranger than any alpha pup had a right to be. Marcus wasn't lying. Whatever this voice was, whatever power had taken hold of her son, it was showing him truth. Which meant Nero had killed Aurelius. Which meant she'd been living under the same roof as her lover's murderer for 3 years. Which meant Marcus had been in danger every single day since birth, and she'd been too blind to see it. The rage that filled Cassia's chest was incandescent. Fine, she said, and her voice came out steady and cold and absolutely done with playing by rules written by alphas who saw omegas as property. Call your blood trial. Let Marcus show the council what happened. But know this, Nero. If my son proves you killed his father, I will invoke the blood oath clause. The entire Great Hall went silent. The blood oath clause was ancient law, older than the pack itself, written in the founding documents when the Silverwood Wolves had first established their territory. If a regent proved that the acting alpha had murdered the previous alpha, the regent could claim the murdered alpha's strength for themselves through ritual combat. Not a challenge for dominance. Not a fair fight. Ritual combat, where the regent fought with the blessing of the murdered alpha spirit, and pack magic flowed through them like divine retribution, and survival was no longer about strength but about righteousness. An Omega had never invoked the blood oath clause. Ever. In 500 years of pack history. Because Omegas couldn't channel that kind of power without burning themselves out from the inside. But Cassia didn't care. She'd burn to ash if it meant protecting Marcus. Nero's smile faltered for the first time. You'd kill yourself, he said. Even if Marcus proves I'm guilty, even if the council allows the blood trial, you'd never survive the ritual combat. You're an Omega. Your wolf can't handle that kind of magic. Try me, Cassia said. And in that moment, standing in the great hall with her son glowing like a star behind her and 200 wolves watching her challenge an alpha who could snap her neck with one hand, Cassia finally understood what Aurelius had seen in her all those years ago. Not weakness. Not submission. Absolute, unshakable, terrifying love. The kind of love that would burn down kingdoms. Elder Octavius raised his staff again. The blood trial is set, he said. 3 days from now, at the full moon, young Marcus will present his vision to the council. If Alpha Nero is found guilty of murdering Alpha King Aurelius, Luna Cassia may invoke the blood oath clause and face him in ritual combat. If Marcus cannot prove the accusation, the regency passes to Alpha Nero, and the child's inheritance is forfeit. And what about the coronation? Lady Valentina asked. What about the crown? Octavius looked at the empty window, at the courtyard below where Cassia's silver crown still lay in the mud. The coronation, he said quietly, is postponed indefinitely. The council chambers emptied slowly, wolves filing out in clusters, whispering, speculating, already choosing sides for the coming conflict. Cassia waited until the last wolf had left before she moved to Marcus, who stood at the window with his eyes closed. His small chest rising and falling with breaths that seemed too deep for a child his size. Marcus, she whispered. Baby, can you hear me? His eyes opened, and they were his own again. No glow, no strange layered voice, just her little boy looking up at her with confusion and fear. Mama. His voice was small, uncertain. Did I do something bad? Cassia gathered him into her arms and held him so tightly she could feel his heartbeat against her chest. No, baby, she said. You didn't do anything bad. You told the truth. And sometimes telling the truth is the hardest, bravest thing anyone can do. Marcus buried his face in her neck, and she felt him trembling. The voice scared me, he whispered. It was so big, Mama. So big and so old, and it wanted to use me to say things, and I couldn't stop it. Cassia's heart shattered. She'd known Marcus was different. She'd known his alpha blood ran stronger than normal. But oracle powers. Divine intervention. Ancient forces speaking through her baby. This was beyond anything she'd prepared for. It's okay, she said, even though it wasn't. I've got you. I'll always have you. No matter what happens. Footsteps echoed in the empty great hall, and Cassia turned to see Lady Valentina approaching, her silver hair catching the afternoon light like spider silk. Valentina was old, older than anyone except Octavius, and she'd been Aurelius's mentor, his advisor, his conscience when the weight of the crown had threatened to break him. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen, Valentina said softly, or the most foolish. I'm not sure which. Does it matter? Cassia asked. I suppose not. Valentina knelt in front of Marcus, her ancient eyes searching his face. Hello, little one. Do you remember me? Marcus nodded. You gave me honey cakes, he said. At my birthday. I did. Valentina smiled. And now I'm going to give you something else. Knowledge. Do you know what an oracle is? Marcus shook his head. An oracle, Valentina said, is someone who can see things that others cannot. Past, present, future, sometimes all at once. It's a gift, Marcus. A rare and powerful gift. But it's also a burden, because the things you see won't always make sense, and the people around you won't always believe you, and you'll have to be very brave. I don't want to be brave, Marcus said, and his voice cracked. I want to be normal. Valentina's expression softened. I know, child. But normal isn't what the moon goddess had in mind for you. You're special. Which means your life will be harder than it should be. But your mother will help you. And so will I. And so will everyone who loved your father. She stood and turned to Cassia. The blood trial will be brutal, she said. Nero will bring witnesses. He'll have alibis. He's been planning his defense for 3 years, ever since Aurelius made the blood oath. Whatever Marcus saw, you'll need more than the word of a 3-year-old oracle to convince the council. What are you saying? Cassia asked. I'm saying you need to investigate, Valentina said. You have 3 days to find proof. Physical proof. Something that even Nero's allies can't deny. And I'm saying that I'll help you because Aurelius was my student and my friend. And if Nero killed him, I want that bastard's head on a pike. The violence in Valentina's voice was shocking coming from the elegant old wolf. But it was also exactly what Cassia needed to hear. Where do we start? Cassia asked. Valentina glanced at Marcus, who'd fallen asleep in Cassia's arms, exhausted from whatever the oracle power had done to him. We start, Valentina said, with the night Aurelius died. Because if Nero killed him, he did it in the royal chambers while the healers were treating the cancer. Which means someone saw something. We just have to find out who. The royal archives were in the eastern tower, 300 stone steps above the main palace, and by the time Cassia reached the top with Marcus asleep on her back, her legs were burning and her lungs were screaming. But Valentina had insisted. The death records, the old wolf had said. Every alpha's death is recorded by the royal scribes. Time, manner, witnesses present. If Nero killed Aurelius, there might be something in the official record that doesn't add up. Cassia had doubted it. Nero was too smart to leave obvious evidence, but she'd agreed because she didn't have better options. Now, standing in the dusty archive hall with shelves of leather-bound records stretching up into darkness, she felt the weight of impossible odds pressing down on her shoulders. 3 days. She had 3 days to prove that an alpha who'd spent 3 years covering his tracks had committed murder. 3 days to save her son's inheritance. 3 days to stop Nero from taking the throne and destroying everything Aurelius had died protecting. Here, Valentina said, pulling a heavy tome from a shelf marked with the royal seal. Aurelius's death record. Cassia set Marcus down carefully on a cushioned bench near the window, making sure he was still sleeping, before joining Valentina at the reading table. The record was written in formal Pack script, every letter precise and official. Alpha King Aurelius Silverwood died on the winter solstice, 3 years past, in his private chambers. Cause Luna Cancer Stage 4. Witnesses present. High Priestess Liviana, Healer Quintus, Beta Commander Gaius, Alpha Nero Silverwood. Time of death. 2 hours past midnight. Cassia read the entry 3 times, looking for anything unusual. Luna Cancer takes months to kill, she said slowly. But Aurelius was fine at the autumn festival. She saw him. He was strong, healthy. And then 6 weeks later he was dead. Is that normal? Valentina's face was grim. No, she said. It's not. Luna Cancer is slow. Progressive. Even stage 4 takes at least a year to kill an alpha. 6 weeks is unheard of. So someone accelerated it, Cassia said. Someone poisoned him, Valentina corrected. Luna Cancer can be induced with the right combination of wolfsbane and silver dust. Small doses over time, administered so gradually that even the best healers wouldn't notice until it was too late. Cassia's hands clenched on the edge of the table. "Nero," she said. "Probably," Valentina agreed. "But proving it is another matter. Healer Quintus is dead. Died in his sleep 2 years ago, very conveniently. High Priestess Liviana is loyal to the Council, not to any individual Alpha and Beta Commander Gaius." She trailed off, and Cassia finished the thought. "Gaius is Nero's man," she said. "He was there in the Great Hall today, defending Nero. He'll never testify against him." "Which leaves Liviana," Valentina said. "And she'll only speak the truth she witnessed. If Nero was careful, if he administered the poison before the death night, then Liviana won't have seen anything suspicious." Cassia wanted to scream. Every lead was a dead end. Every witness was compromised or dead. And Marcus was sleeping 10 feet away, innocent and vulnerable, with 3 days left before his entire future was stolen by the wolf who'd killed his father. "There has to be something," Cassia said. "Some piece of evidence that Nero missed. Some witness he didn't silence." Valentina was quiet for a long moment, staring at the death record with ancient eyes that had seen too much treachery, too much loss. "There is one witness," she said finally. "One person who was in the royal chambers that night but isn't listed in the official record." "Who?" Valentina looked at her. "You," she said. Cassia's breath caught. "I wasn't. I didn't. Aurelius and I hadn't seen each other in months. Not since I told him I was pregnant. He wanted to protect me, wanted to keep me away from court politics until the baby was born. I wasn't there when he died." "No," Valentina said. "But you were there the night before. Saw you. Sneaking through the servants' entrance, heading toward the royal wing. I didn't say anything because I knew Aurelius wanted to see you, wanted to see his son before the cancer took him. But if you were there the night before he died, then you might have seen something, heard something, noticed someone entering or leaving his chambers who shouldn't have been there." Cassia's mind raced back 3 years, to that terrible night when she'd carried newborn Marcus through the cold palace corridors, desperate to let Aurelius meet his son before it was too late. She'd been so focused on the baby, on keeping him quiet, on reaching Aurelius before the healers sent her away. Had she seen anyone? Had she heard anything? The memory was foggy, obscured by exhaustion and fear and the overwhelming grief of watching the man she loved dying by inches. But there was something. A shadow in the corridor. A figure moving away from Aurelius's chambers just as she'd arrived. She'd dismissed it at the time. Probably a servant, probably a healer. But now, with Valentina staring at her with desperate hope, Cassia forced herself to remember. The figure had been tall. Ulfa tall. And they'd been carrying something. A vial. Pouch. Something small and dark that they'd tucked into their coat before disappearing around the corner. "I saw someone," Cassia said slowly, "leaving his chambers. The night before he died. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but—" "Who?" Valentina demanded. "Cassia, who was it?" "I don't know," Cassia said. "It was dark. They were moving fast. But they were tall. Alpha height. And they had something in their hand." Valentina's eyes gleamed. "That's enough," she said. "If we can prove someone was in Aurelius's chambers the night before he died, administering poison, if we can identify who it was, then we have our evidence." "But I can't identify them," Cassia said. "I didn't see their face." "No," Valentina said. "But Marcus might." Cassia's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "Oracle powers don't just show the future," Valentina said. "They show the past. They show truth. If Marcus touched you, if he accessed your memory of that night, he might be able to see what you couldn't. He might be able to identify who was leaving Aurelius's chambers." "He's 3 years old," Cassia said. "You want me to force him to relive the night his father was murdered? You want me to use him like some kind of tool? I want you to give him a fighting chance," Valentina said sharply. "Because if we don't find proof, Nero wins. And when Nero wins, what do you think happens to Marcus? Do you think Nero will just let him live? Let him grow up to challenge his claim? Aurelius's son will be dead within a year, Cassia. Accident, illness, some tragic mishap that everyone will mourn but no one will investigate. Is that what you want? Cassia felt tears burning behind her eyes. She wanted to argue. She wanted to protect Marcus from this, from all of it, from the ugly reality of pack politics and murder and betrayal. But Valentina was right. If they didn't find proof, Marcus would die. Slowly, quietly, carefully, but he would die. And Cassia would die with him, because she'd invoke the blood oath clause anyway, would throw herself into ritual combat against Nero without evidence, without the pack's blessing, and she'd burn out in minutes and Marcus would be alone. How do I do it? Cassia asked quietly. How do I help him access my memories? Valentina pulled another book from the shelf. This one older, bound in leather so dark it looked black, with silver script that hurt to look at directly. Oracle magic is tied to touch, she said, flipping pages until she found what she was looking for. Physical contact between the oracle and the person whose memories they're accessing. You'll need to hold him. Focus on the memory. Let him in. That's it. That's it, Valentina said. The magic will do the rest. But Cassia, it will hurt. For both of you. Accessing another person's memories isn't gentle. It's invasive, violent even. And Marcus is so young. His mind might not be able to process what he sees. He'll process it, Cassia said, because she had to believe that. He's stronger than anyone gives him credit for. He survived 3 years of hiding, 3 years of being different, 3 years of knowing he's special without understanding why. He'll survive this too. I hope. Marcus woke slowly. His eyes fluttering open as the late afternoon sun slanted through the archive windows. Mama, he said sleepily. Where are we? The archives, baby, Cassia said, gathering him into her lap. We're looking for something important. Something that will help keep you safe. Marcus rubbed his eyes. The voice said something, he said. While I was sleeping. Said Uncle Nero is bad. Said Uncle Nero hurts people. It said I need to remember. Cassia's heart clenched. Remember what, baby? I don't know, Marcus said. The voice shows me things but they're all mixed up. Like dreams. There's Daddy but he's sick. And there's you but you're crying. And there's a man in the shadows and he's holding something dark. And the voice says that's important, but I don't know why. Cassia exchanged a glance with Valentina. Marcus was already seeing it. Already accessing the memories, even without knowing how. The oracle power was stronger than they'd realized. Marcus, Cassia said gently. I need to show you something. A memory from when you were a baby. A memory of the night before Daddy died. Do you think you can look at it with me? Marcus's silver blue eyes searched her face. Will it hurt? He asked. Cassia wouldn't lie to him. Maybe, she said. A little. But I'll be right here with you. And if it gets too scary, we'll stop. I promise. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. His small hand gripping hers. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. I'll be brave. For Daddy. Cassia pulled him close, wrapped her arms around him and closed her eyes. Think about that night, Valentina said softly. The corridor. The figure in the shadows. Let Marcus see what you saw. Cassia focused. The memory rose like smoke, hazy and incomplete. She'd been walking through the servants' corridor. Marcus bundled against her chest. Barely a day old and so small she'd feared he might break. The palace had been quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that came before death. And she'd moved quickly, desperately, knowing that if the healers caught her they'd send her away. She'd reached the royal wing. Turned the corner toward Aurelius's chambers. There. The figure. Tall, cloaked, moving fast. She'd pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath, praying Marcus wouldn't cry. The figure hadn't seen her. Had walked right past, so close she could have reached out and touched them. And in their hand. Vial. Small, dark glass, stoppered with silver. They'd tucked it into their coat and disappeared. and Cassia had pushed the encounter from her mind because Aurelius was dying and nothing else had mattered. But now it mattered. Now it was everything. "I see it," Marcus whispered, and his voice had that strange layered quality again. "I see the man. I see the vial. I see." He gasped. His whole body went rigid in Cassia's arms. "Marcus," Cassia said, panic rising. "Baby, what is it? What do you see?" "Uncle Gaius," Marcus said, and his voice was layered with shock and certainty and something that might have been rage. "It's Uncle Gaius. He's the one with the poison. He's the one who killed Daddy." Valentina swore softly. "Beta Commander Gaius," she said. "Nero's right hand." Of course. Cassia's mind was reeling. She'd never suspected Gaius. The man had been Aurelius's beta commander for 20 years, had fought beside him in a dozen pack wars, had sworn blood loyalty to the Silverwood line. But he'd also been in the royal chambers the night Aurelius died. Had been listed as a witness on the death record. Had been positioned perfectly to administer a final, fatal dose while the healers were distracted. And no one had questioned it. Because why would they? Gaius was loyal. Gaius was honorable. Gaius was above suspicion. Which made him the perfect assassin. "We need to confront him," Cassia said. "No," Valentina said sharply. "We need proof. Marcus's vision isn't enough. Not when Gaius is this respected, this connected. We need the vial. We need physical evidence. And we need it before the blood trial." "How do we get it?" Cassia asked. Valentina's smile was cold and dangerous. "We break into his chambers," she said. "Tonight." Breaking into the Beta Commander's private chambers was, quite possibly, the stupidest thing Cassia had ever done. But she was out of options. Out of time. Out of everything except desperation and a mother's fury. Valentina had given her a map of the palace's servant passages, the hidden corridors that ran behind the walls, used by staff to move unseen through the grand halls, and a key that would supposedly open any door in the residential wing. "Where did you get this?" Cassia had asked, holding up the key. "I've been in this palace for 70 years, Valentina had said. "You pick up things." Now, at midnight, with Marcus sleeping safely in Valentina's chambers under heavy guard, Cassia crept through the narrow passages, her wolf senses stretched to their limit, listening for any sign of discovery. Gaius's chambers were on the 3rd floor, in the west wing where the high-ranking pack officials lived. The door was oak, reinforced with silver, standard security for anyone with enemies, but Valentina's key slid in smoothly, and the lock clicked open with barely a sound. Cassia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She pushed the door open an inch. Darkness inside. Silence. Gaius was out, probably at the training grounds, where he spent most nights drilling the younger warriors. Cassia slipped inside and closed the door behind her. The chambers were exactly what she'd expected. Military precision, everything in its place, weapons mounted on the walls like art. But where would Gaius hide a vial of poison? Where would he keep evidence of regicide? Cassia moved through the main room, checking drawers, cabinets, looking under furniture. Nothing. The bedroom was equally barren. The bathroom same. She was running out of places to look, and panic was starting to set in, when she noticed something odd. The rug in the center of the main room was slightly askew. Just a few inches off-center, like someone had moved it recently and hadn't bothered to put it back perfectly. Cassia knelt and pulled the rug aside. Underneath was a loose floorboard. Her breath caught. She pried the board up carefully, revealing a small space beneath. And there, wrapped in black cloth, was a wooden box. Cassia's hands shook as she lifted it out and opened it. Inside were 3 vials of dark liquid. A leather journal, filled with dates and dosages. And a letter, written in Nero's handwriting. Continue the doses as discussed. When Aurelius dies, make sure the healers record natural causes. You'll be rewarded beyond measure once I take the throne. It was signed with Nero's seal. Cassia wanted to scream. Wanted to run back to the Great Hall right now and throw this evidence at the council's feet. But she forced herself to stay calm, to carefully wrap the box back up, to replace the floorboard and the rug exactly as she'd found them. She needed to get this out of the palace. Needed to hide it somewhere safe until the blood trial. Because if Gaius discovered it missing, if Nero found out she had evidence, they'd kill her before she ever made it to the council chambers. She turned toward the door. And froze. Someone was in the corridor. Footsteps, heavy and measured, heading toward the chambers. Cassia's wolf screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The servant passage was on the other side of the main room, and if she tried to reach it now, whoever was coming would see her. She looked around desperately. The bedroom. The window. It was 3 stories up, but she was a wolf, and wolves could survive falls that would kill humans. She darted into the bedroom just as the main door opened. Gaius's voice filled the chambers. "Told you I handled it," he was saying. "The Omega won't be a problem after the trial. Nero's got it under control." Another voice responded. Male, unfamiliar. "And the boy? What about the oracle powers?" "A fluke," Gaius said. "One vision doesn't make him a threat. Kids say crazy things. The council won't believe him." Cassia pressed herself against the bedroom wall, barely breathing, clutching the box of evidence to her chest. If Gaius came into the bedroom, if he checked the floorboard, if he realized the box was gone, she'd be dead before morning. "I don't like loose ends," the other male said. "We should eliminate the child now. Before the trial." "Nero wants to do this legally," Gaius said. "Wants it to look like the Omega lost fair and square. Killing the kid now would raise too many questions." "Fine. But after the trial?" "After the trial, both of them disappear," Gaius said. "Tragic accident. Mother and son. Very sad. The pack mourns. Nero takes the throne. Everyone wins." Cassia felt ice flood her veins. They were going to kill Marcus. Not just take his inheritance, kill him. And they were talking about it like it was nothing, like he was an inconvenience to be removed. Not a child, not a person, not Aurelius's son. She wanted to burst out of the bedroom and tear Gaius's throat out with her bare hands. But she forced herself to stay still, to wait, to breathe. The voices moved toward the main door. "I'll talk to Nero tomorrow," Gaius said. "Make sure everything's in place." "Good. I don't want any surprises." The door opened and closed. Footsteps faded down the corridor. Silence. Cassia waited a full minute before she moved, every muscle screaming, her wolf barely contained. Then she crossed to the bedroom window, opened it and looked down. 3 stories. Into a garden. Not great odds, but better than staying here. She clutched the box tighter, said a prayer to the moon goddess and jumped. She hit the ground hard, her ankle twisting, pain shooting up her leg. But she was alive. The box was intact. And she had evidence. Real, undeniable, physical evidence that Nero and Gaius had murdered Aurelius. Cassia limped through the garden, keeping to the shadows, heading for the servant entrance where Valentina would be waiting. Every step sent fire through her ankle, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because in 3 days, she'd stand before the council with this evidence, and she'd prove that Marcus was telling the truth, and she'd watch Nero and Gaius answer for what they'd done. And then she'd invoke the blood oath clause. She'd face Nero in ritual combat. She'd let Aurelius's spirit flow through her one last time. And she'd make him pay for everything he'd stolen. She reached the servant entrance just as the first rays of dawn broke over the palace walls. Valentina was waiting inside, her ancient face tight with worry. "Did you find it?" she asked. Cassia held up the box. "I found it," she said. "All of it. The vials, the journal, a letter from Nero ordering Gaius to poison Aurelius. It's everything we need." Valentina's eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. "Then we've got him," she said. 3 days from now, at the blood trial, we end this." Cassia nodded. But as she followed Valentina through the palace corridors, heading back to Marcus, she couldn't shake the feeling that ending this would cost her more than she was ready to pay. Because ritual combat didn't just kill the guilty party. It killed whoever wasn't strong enough to channel the magic. And she was an Omega. And Omegas didn't survive that kind of power. Which meant that even if she won, even if she destroyed Nero and saved Marcus's inheritance, she'd be dead before the sun set. Marcus would have his throne. But he'd lose his mother. And Cassia didn't know if that was a trade worth making. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation, strategy, and sleepless nights. Valentina hid the evidence in her personal vault, sealed with magic that only the council elders could access, ensuring that even if Gaius suspected, even if Nero came looking, they wouldn't be able to destroy it before the trial. Cassia spent every waking hour with Marcus, trying to explain what was coming, trying to prepare him for the possibility that his mother might not survive the ritual combat. "I don't want you to fight," Marcus said on the morning of the trial. His small face streaked with tears. "I don't want you to get hurt." "I know, baby," Cassia said, holding him close. "But sometimes we have to fight to protect the people we love. Your father fought his whole life to keep the pack safe. And now it's my turn." "But what if you die?" Marcus asked, and his voice broke. "What if the magic is too strong and you die like Daddy?" Cassia cupped his face in her hands. "Then you'll be strong," she said. "You'll be brave. You'll grow up to be the kind of alpha your father would have been proud of. And you'll remember that I loved you more than anything in the world." Marcus threw his arms around her neck and sobbed, and Cassia held him, memorizing the feel of him, the smell of him, the sound of his heartbeat against her chest. Because she knew, had known from the moment she decided to invoke the blood oath clause, that this might be the last time she ever held her son. The full moon rose over the palace like a silver eye, and the council chambers filled with wolves. Every high-ranking pack member in the kingdom had come to witness the blood trial. They filled the tiers of stone seating that rose around the central chamber floor, their eyes gleaming in the moonlight, their wolves barely contained beneath their skin. Elder Octavius stood at the center, his staff in hand, his ancient face grim. "The blood trial will now commence," he said. "Young Marcus, Oracle of the Silverwood Pack, has accused Alpha Nero of murdering Alpha King Aurelius through poison administered by Beta Commander Gaius. Let the evidence be presented." Valentina stepped forward, carrying the wooden box. She opened it before the council, laying out the vials, the journal, the letter. "Physical evidence," she said, "proving that Nero ordered Gaius to poison Aurelius with wolfsbane and silver dust, administered over 6 weeks, accelerating the Luna cancer until it killed him. The journal shows dates and dosages matching the progression of Aurelius's illness. The letter is written in Nero's hand and sealed with his personal seal." A murmur rippled through the assembled wolves. Nero's face remained perfectly calm, but Cassia saw the fury in his eyes, saw the way his hands clenched behind his back. "That evidence could have been planted," he said. "Fabricated by desperate wolves trying to save a failed regency." "The handwriting can be verified," Octavius said. "The seal can be authenticated. And the vials can be tested for wolfsbane and silver dust. These tests will be conducted by neutral parties. If the evidence is real, if you ordered Aurelius's murder, then Luna Cassia has the right to invoke the blood oath clause and face you in ritual combat." Nero's lip curled. "And if I refuse?" "Then you admit guilt," Octavius said. "And you forfeit your life. Pack law is clear. An alpha who murders the king forfeits all rights, all protections, and faces execution by the council. It was a trap with no escape. Fight and possibly die. Refuse and definitely die." Nero's amber eyes swept the council chambers, calculating, measuring support. And then they landed on Marcus, who stood beside Cassia, small and fierce and glowing with that strange oracle light. "Fine," Nero said. "Let her invoke the clause. Let her fight me with her omega strength and her desperate love. I'll crush her in minutes, and when she's dead, the boy's inheritance passes to me anyway. You'll have your ritual combat. And I'll have my throne." The temperature in the chamber dropped. Cassia felt her wolf surge beneath her skin, ready, eager, burning with 3 years of rage and grief. "Elder Octavius," she said, "I invoke the blood oath clause. I claim Aurelius's strength for my own. I challenge Alpha Nero to ritual combat, and I swear on my life that I will see justice done for the king who was stolen from us." Octavius slammed his staff against the stone floor 3 times. "The blood oath clause is invoked," he said. "Luna Cassia will face Alpha Nero in ritual combat under the full moon. The combat will continue until one party yields or dies. May the moon goddess guide the righteous." The council chambers erupted into chaos, wolves shouting, choosing sides, making bets, but Cassia heard none of it. She was focused on Nero. On the male who'd murdered the only man she'd ever loved. On the alpha who'd threatened her son. And she was going to destroy him or die trying. The ritual combat arena was ancient. Older than the palace, older than the pack itself, carved into the stone hillside where the first Silverwood wolves had made their territory. The floor was marked with symbols in silver and blood, pack magic woven into every line, designed to amplify the power of whoever fought within its boundaries. Cassia stood at one end, her body humming with energy she'd never felt before, Aurelius's spirit flowing through her like lightning. She could feel him, could feel his strength, his rage, his love. He was here in the magic in her blood, in the bond they'd shared for one brief, perfect night. And he was furious. Nero stood at the other end, his eyes glowing alpha gold. His wolf barely contained beneath his skin. "You should have stayed in the Omega quarters," he said. "Should have accepted your place. Now you're going to die in front of your son, and it's your own fault." Cassia smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You talk too much," she said. And then she shifted. The transformation tore through her body in seconds, faster than any shift she'd ever done, fueled by the ritual magic and Aurelius's spirit. Her Omega wolf burst from her skin, but it wasn't her wolf anymore. It was something bigger, stronger, touched by divine fury. Her fur was silver white, glowing like moonlight. Her eyes were the same silver blue as Marcus's, as Aurelius's. And when she threw back her head and howled, the sound shook the arena, sent wolves scrambling back in fear, because this wasn't an Omega challenging an Alpha. This was the moon goddess's judgment made flesh. Nero shifted too, his massive black wolf slamming into the arena floor with enough force to crack stone. He was twice Cassia's size, his jaws lined with teeth that could crush bone, his claws sharp enough to tear through armor. But Cassia didn't care. She had Aurelius's spirit. She had 3 years of grief. She had a son to protect. And she was done being afraid. They collided in the center of the arena like thunder, teeth and claws and raw fury. And the pack magic exploded around them in waves of silver light. Nero was stronger, faster, more experienced. But Cassia fought like something possessed. And in a way she was. Every bite, every slash, every desperate lunge was fueled by love and rage in equal measure. She tore at his throat. He threw her across the arena. She rolled, got her feet under her, and charged again. Blood splattered the ancient stones. Both of them were bleeding. Cassia from a dozen wounds, Nero from gashes across his shoulder and flank. But neither would yield. Neither could yield. Because this wasn't about dominance. It was about survival. Cassia lunged for his throat again, her jaws closing on fur and muscle, and Nero howled, a sound of pain and rage, as she tasted his blood. But he twisted, his massive weight slamming her into the ground, and suddenly his jaws were at her throat. His teeth pressing against the vulnerable pulse point where one bite would end everything. "Yield," he snarled. His wolf's voice echoing in her mind. "Yield or die." Cassia felt the pack magic draining from her body. Felt Aurelius's spirit flickering like a candle in a storm. She was Omega. She'd never been strong enough for this. And Nero was going to kill her. But then, a child's voice, clear and furious, cutting through the howls and the blood and the chaos. "Mama!" Marcus stood at the edge of the arena, his small body glowing with that impossible oracle light, his eyes burning silver blue. "The voice says fight," Marcus shouted. "The voice says Daddy's with you. The voice says you can win." And suddenly, Aurelius's spirit surged through Cassia like wildfire. Stronger than before. Brighter. As if Marcus's belief had given it form, had given it power. Had anchored it to the mortal world long enough to finish what it started. Cassia felt strength flood her limbs. Felt her wolf grow, expand, become something that should have been impossible. And with a roar that shook the arena, she threw Nero off her, twisted, and sank her teeth into his throat. Through. Tearing through fur and muscle and artery in one savage bite. Nero's eyes went wide with shock. He tried to fight, tried to throw her off, but the pack magic was pouring into Cassia now, through Aurelius's spirit, through Marcus's oracle power, through the moon goddess herself. And Nero was just an alpha. Just a murderer. Just a male who'd thought he could take a throne that didn't belong to him. Cassia held on until Nero stopped struggling. Until his massive black wolf went limp beneath her. Until his eyes dulled and his heart stopped and the pack magic declared her the victor. Then she released him and shifted back to human form. Her body covered in blood and wounds, her lungs screaming, her vision blurring. She'd won. But the cost. The pack magic was burning through her now, consuming her from the inside, because she was Omega and she'd channeled more power than her body could handle. She was dying. And she knew it. Mama! Marcus ran into the arena, threw himself into her arms, and Cassia caught him, held him one last time. You did it, Marcus sobbed. You won. Daddy helped you. I saw him. He was there with you. I know, baby, Cassia whispered. I know he was. Her vision was darkening at the edges. The pack magic was eating through her cells, burning her out like a candle that had burned too bright. She had minutes, maybe less. Marcus, she said. Listen to me. You're going to be okay. Lady Valentina will take care of you. The council will honor your inheritance. You'll be king one day just like your father. And you'll be good and strong and... Don't leave me, Marcus begged. Mama, please don't leave me. Cassia pressed her forehead to his. I love you, she whispered. More than anything. More than kingdoms. More than. The world went white. And then. Nothing. But she didn't die. Cassia woke in the palace healer's chambers 3 days later. Her body wrapped in bandages, her throat raw, every muscle screaming. But she was alive. How? She croaked, and Lady Valentina appeared beside her bed, ancient eyes gleaming with something that might have been tears. Marcus, Valentina said. His oracle power. When the pack magic was burning you out when you were seconds from death, he touched you and channeled it. Pulled the excess magic out of your body and dispersed it safely. The healers say it should have been impossible, that no 3-year-old should have that kind of control. But he did it anyway. Cassia's eyes filled with tears. Where is he? She asked. Sleeping, Valentina said. He hasn't left your side since the combat. Cried himself to sleep about an hour ago. Cassia tried to sit up, and her body protested violently. Easy, Valentina said. You're still healing. The wounds will take weeks to fully close. But you'll live. And Marcus will have his mother. And Nero. She smiled coldly. Nero and Gaius are dead. The council has declared Marcus the rightful heir. And you, Luna Cassia, are officially recognized as regent until Marcus comes of age. Cassia felt something break open in her chest, relief so profound it hurt. They'd won. Against impossible odds, against alphas and politics and 500 years of pack law that said Omegas couldn't rule, they'd won. Marcus would be safe. He'd have his throne. And she'd be there to protect him every step of the way. The coronation, Cassia said. When? Next full moon, Valentina said. And this time we'll make sure Marcus knows not to throw the crown out the window. Cassia laughed, and then immediately regretted it as pain shot through her ribs. He didn't throw it because he was rejecting me, she said softly. Did he? No, Valentina said. He threw it because his oracle power saw the future. Saw that you needed to fight Nero to claim your true authority. Saw that the coronation needed to be stopped so the blood trial could happen. The voice showed him what needed to be done, and he did it. That's what oracles do. They see the threads of fate, and they pull the ones that lead to the right outcome. Cassia closed her eyes. Her 3-year-old son had orchestrated this entire sequence of events, had stopped a coronation, triggered a blood trial, and saved both their lives with magic he barely understood. He's going to be terrifying when he grows up, she said. Yes, Valentina agreed. He is. But he'll also be kind. Just because he has you. The door opened and Marcus stumbled in, rubbing his eyes sleepily. When he saw Cassia was awake, his face lit up like the sun. Mama! He scrambled onto the bed, carefully, so carefully, and curled up against her side. You're okay, he whispered. The voice said you'd be okay, but I was scared. I'm okay, baby, Cassia said, running her fingers through his dark curls. Thanks to you. You saved me. Daddy helped, Marcus said. He was there the whole time. He said to tell you he's proud. And he said he loves you. And he said. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. He said he'll always protect us. Even from far away. Cassia felt tears spill down her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered to the empty air, to the spirit she couldn't see but knew was listening. Thank you for giving me this. For giving us this. And maybe it was her imagination, but she could have sworn she felt warm arms wrap around both of them, just for a moment before fading back into the moonlight. The coronation happened 4 weeks later, under a sky so clear it looked like crystal. The great hall was packed with wolves, not just from Silverwood, but from allied packs across the kingdom, all of them come to witness the impossible. An Omega Luna, an oracle child, a bloodline reborn. Cassia stood before the council in a gown of silver and white, and this time when Elder Octavius placed the crown on her head, she didn't flinch. She'd earned this crown. In blood and sacrifice and a mother's love. And no one, not Nero, not Gaius, not any wolf in the kingdom, could take it from her now. Luna Cassia Silverwood, Octavius said, his voice ringing through the great hall. Regent of the Silverwood Pack. Protector of the air. Victor of the blood trial. May your rule be long and just. The assembled wolves howled their approval, and the sound shook the palace walls. Marcus stood beside her, wearing a small crown of his own, the heir's crown, silver and delicate and perfect for a child. He looked up at her and smiled. The voice says we did good, Mama, he said. It says Daddy would be happy. Cassia smiled back. We did very good, baby, she said. And yes, I think he would be. She looked out over the great hall, at the wolves who'd doubted her, who'd dismissed her, who'd thought an Omega could never rule. And she felt Aurelius's spirit somewhere in the moonlight beyond the stained glass windows. Watching, protecting, proud. They'd broken every rule. Rewritten pack law. Survived the impossible. And standing there with her son beside her and a crown on her head and the future stretching out like an open road, Cassia finally, felt like she was home. The toddler heir had thrown the crown out the window and stopped the coronation cold. But in doing so, he'd given them something better than a ceremony. He'd given them truth, justice, and a chance to build a kingdom where love mattered more than bloodline, where courage mattered more than rank, and where even an Omega could wear a crown. Then, or is it? Because the voice that speaks through Marcus isn't done yet. And in the shadows of the palace, something ancient is stirring, something that sees the oracle child as either salvation or threat.